Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 Page 10, Hine Matov. Hine Matov umanayim, sheverachim gam yachad. Hine Matov umanayim, sheverachim gam yachad. Matov umanayim, sheverachim gam yachad. Hine 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 matov umanayim, sheverachim gam yachad. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Anshe Chesed Fairmount Temple. My name is Cantor Vladimir Lapin, and I'm happy to be here with all of you as we usher in Shabbat together as one Fairmount Temple community. Let's all take a deep breath for Shabbat. As we begin our services, I invite you to think about this past week. Do you remember where you were last Friday, last weekend, Saturday, Sunday? What about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Time is odd. There are some memories that jump out immediately, and some are blurred or subdued. Sometimes it's easier to remember what might have happened 3 weeks ago, but you might not remember what happened yesterday. Take this moment that we have right now as we're starting our service to think about someone that you might have helped this week, or perhaps someone that may have helped you in some way, big way or small way. Think about something delicious that you ate, or maybe smelled. Maybe there was a smell that was really wonderful this week. There was a moment earlier today when the rain started. Everyone heard that big thunderous rain earlier today, where I was actually outside in the moment and I was about to run inside to get covered. But Ellie, my wife, said, "No, We don't know how much longer we're going to have this summer opportunity to smell that summer rain, and the smell was so wonderful this afternoon of that rain. Now, I invite you to picture the face of someone you love, and also picture the face of someone you know loves you back. Friends, these are our blessings. And Shabbat offers us an opportunity to honor, remember, and also to treasure them. And thinking about memories, I want to share with you a story tonight that comes from our sages. This is a story about a wise and compassionate and much loved queen. The queen was getting older, and she knew that the day was approaching when she was going to have to pass the responsibility of ruling her nation. She had 3 children. They were all kind and respected as much as she was. But the queen knew that the next ruler needed both kindness and wisdom, and she had to choose between them. But she just couldn't, so she devised a test. Off in the country, she owned a small home. The queen and her family would always spend parts of the summer in this house, and it was in her family for hundreds of years. She brought her children to this home that they knew so well and told them that one at a time, each of them would have 1 week to fill the home, fill it with something, anything they desire. It just had to be filled up completely. So the oldest daughter thought and thought, how do you fill up a house? And then it came to her. I know, she said, feathers. Feathers can fill the whole house. I will fill up this whole house with feathers. She brought in loads and loads of feathers. She started in the corners and filled up every room until it was overflowing. She proudly showed her mother, the queen, who praised her for completing the task. Then the oldest gathered up all the feathers and asked them to be made into coats for people in need. A very wise and kind decision indeed, thought the queen. The middle son went next. He too thought and thought, how do you fill up a house? And then it came to him, I know, straw. I'll fill the whole house up with straw, he said. And he brought in carton upon cart of straw. He started in the corners and filled up every room until it was overflowing. He proudly showed his mother, the queen, who praised him for completing the task. And then the middle son gathered up all the straw and made it available to any farmer in need. Another brilliant decision by her child, thought the queen. Finally, it was time for the youngest daughter. She thought and thought, how do you fill up a house? And then it came to her. Inspired by her fondest memories from childhood, she asked her mother, the queen, to join her as the sun was setting. The queen looked from afar. The house looked empty from the windows. The youngest daughter invited her mother in and started showing her around the house. She started lighting candles in every room. In one room, after she lit the candle, a violinist began to play a melody that they both loved. In another, after she lit the candle, a jester began to entertain a group of children, and laughter could be heard. In the kitchen, the queen smelled her favorite soup on a stove that her father used to cook for her. She brought her mother, the queen, back into the front room and said, Mother, I love the time we get to spend in this house, so I tried to fill it with my favorite memories. I filled it with light, with music, with food, and with laughter. The queen responded, that, my child, is the kind of wisdom needed to rule the nation. And so, on this Shabbat Re'eh, the last Shabbat before we enter the reflective season of Elul, 1 month before Rosh Hashanah, I pray that our homes and dwelling places be filled with beautiful memories, with light, music, laughter, delicious food, of course. And may our spaces be filled with meaning and with purpose to our lives. Shabbat Shalom. And so, in a moment, we're going to continue our service with the lighting of the candles, and it's my privilege to invite Bob and Lynn Jacobs to help us light the candles, and we'll be on page 2 of our prayer book if you'd like to follow along. Let us light these lights and see the way to you. and let us say Amen. Let us slide these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Lynn and Bob. We continue greeting Shabbat with words from Psalm 98. We'll be on page 16 with Zamru Adonai. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, b'chatzotzrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, yiram hayam umlo, tevel v'yoshveva. Neharot yimcha ohav yachad harim yiraneinu lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel betzedek vehamim b'mei sharim yiram hayam umlo tevel v'yoshveva neharot yimcha ohav yahad harim yiraneinu. We continue with Psalm 29, Adonai oz l'amo yitain. Adonai varech et amo v'shalom. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. We are on page 19 at the bottom. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom v'shalom. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo. We continue with Lecha Dodi on pages 20 and 21, greeting the Sabbath bride. We'll be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishmiyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad. L'shem ultiferet v'litchila lecha dodi, likrat kala v'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki makor habracha מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי שיר דברי. כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. With verse 9 we greet the Sabbath bride. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. הללויה, 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 hallelujah. We remain standing for our call to prayer, the Baruch Hu prayer on page 28. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד. יאללה לילה, יאללה לילה, יאללה לילה, Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. At the bottom of page 31, we read, "This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What light is before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim." We continue with Ahavat Olam on page 32. Ahavat Olam Israel, Amcha Hafta, Amcha Hafta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadta לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה נגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. Our Shema prayer is on page 34 and 35. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. We continue with the chanting of Ve'ahavta on page 36. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות להם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיהם אדוני אלוהיהם אמת. At the top of page 39, let's read together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Micha Mocha on page 40. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh noratilot אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך, בקיים לפני משה ומרים, מלכותך ראו בניך, בקיים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי אנו לעולם ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה לה יא לה 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 יא לה 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 גאל ישראל. Amen, amen, amen. Our prayer for peace and hope in the evening time, our Hashkivenu, is on page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'ha'amidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'ha'amidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'ha'amidenu shomreinu lechayim. A thought has blown the marketplace away. There's a song in the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day. Vishamru on page 44. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam beini uvein bnei Yisrael oti le'olam ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashmi shavat vayinafash uvayom hashmi shavat vayinafash. We continue with the Tefillah Amidah, our standing prayer on page 46, and I invite you to please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך הסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. You may be seated. At the top of page 55, we read, "May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat." We take this opportunity for our own personal reflections in the silent prayer. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Let's take another deep breath for Shabbat. Sometimes it's good to be reminded. I'm grateful and excited to invite Margie Zitelli to offer a teaching on our Devar Torah, on our Torah portion tonight. Margie Zitelli is a member of our board, and I'm so grateful that she accepted our invitation to share some words of Torah. Thank you, Margie.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to tell you a story that was told to me by a friend, and it was told to her by her former neighbor, which makes it a third-hand story. So once I tell it to you, it will be a fourth-hand story, and that's not going to matter because next time you're at Progressive Field, you're going to tell this story to whomever you're with, and then it's going to be a fifth-hand story, and it will continue its journey into Apocrypha. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a die-hard fan of our hometown Cleveland Guardians. And right now, my favorite player is Rookie of the Year contender outfielder Stephen Kwan. He can hit, he can field, he's an excellent base runner, and yet somehow Kwan has yet to capture the zeitgeist of the city of Cleveland in quite the same way as another rookie outfielder and leadoff hitter from the ancient times of, oh, so long ago, way back in the year of 2004 of the Common Era, back when the team was known by its former and much more problematic name, the Cleveland Indians. And that outfielder's name was Grady Sizemore. The children here today will be too young to recall him, but Sizemore was a two-time All-Star, a two-time Gold Glove winner, and a Silver Slugger. Nonetheless, Grady was more renowned for his popularity among the women of our city, developing his own cult following known as Grady's Ladies, and inspiring the first pink Cleveland Indians team merch. So in the mid-aughts, at the apex of Grady fever, my friend's neighbor, so remember this is a third-hand story, my friend's neighbor was traveling in Italy and she found herself stuck in an interminably long line of tourists who were waiting to get into the Vatican to see something that likely had nothing to do with Jewish history. As she waited, she eventually struck up a conversation with the young woman who was behind her in line. This was a woman who was in her early 20s. She was from Everett, Washington. And when she found out where my friend's neighbor was from, she exclaimed, "Oh, I know someone who lives in Cleveland. Maybe you've heard of him." The girl went on to explain that her high school sweetheart was a baseball player, a very good baseball player, and he'd gone on to play professionally, and now he was a Cleveland Indian. But they'd broken up. Baseball was his life. She'd had to make a choice. At 18, following him from one minor league city to another minor league town, well, that wasn't the life she'd wanted, and you know how it is. She didn't really keep up with baseball, but she'd heard he was doing pretty well in Cleveland. "Well, what's his name?" the neighbor asked. "Grady Sizemore," the young woman replied. After the briefest pause, my friend's neighbor burst out laughing, loud enough to shake the whole Vatican. "Oh, honey," she cackled, "did you miss the boat?" See, I told you, you're going to retell that story. So this brings us to this week's Torah portion, Riyah, which finds the Jewish people also waiting, but not for a tourist attraction. At the end of 40 years of wandering in the desert, they're finally at the promised land, and all they have to do is cross the river Jordan, and they can at last rest and find Shalom Bayit, the peace of home. But first, before they're allowed to enter, they have to receive a list of laws to govern their conduct in their new land. Yes, this is one of those list of laws, Torah portions, that my kids begged me not to saddle them with for their B'nai Mitzvah. Riyah begins with a choice that is really no choice at all. See, this day I set before you a blessing and a curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments of the eternal your God that I enjoin upon you this day, and curse if you do not obey, but turn away from the path. Well, it seems pretty obvious, no? Wouldn't we all, at first blush, choose the path of blessing over the path of curse? Riyah includes in its legal and behavioral litany some laws that most here will find familiar, like kashrut, for example, the laws and rules for keeping kosher. They're outlined in Riyah. Only pure and true animals with cloven hooves, no swine, no bottom-dwelling sea life. There's nothing unfamiliar there. There's also quite a bit about worshiping only one God, observing our holidays. That's all par for the course for us Jews. After sifting through the many instructions about farming and tithing, there were a few things, though, that were new to me. Did you know, for example, it's very timely, that we Jews are supposed to forgive all debts in our community every 7 years? Really, every 7 years, a clean financial slate. But we can't be jerks about it. We can't cravenly ask for a loan or refuse to give one just because we know it's been 6 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks since the last debt clearance. Those are the rules. I wonder why that one isn't more widely observed anymore. In fact, there are several Riyah rules that you don't really hear talked about in modern religious school classrooms. And while in biblical times they were non-negotiable for the Jewish people before they could at long last cross the Jordan and gain passage to that desperately awaited for promised land, before they could be blessed. Today, like the former moniker of the Cleveland Guardians, these laws seem, well, let's just say problematic. The very first law, the very first action the Jewish people are enjoined to take upon entering the promised land in order to prove themselves blessed rather than cursed is this: you must destroy all the sites at which the nations you are to dispossess worshiped their gods. Tear down their altars, smash their pillars, put their sacred posts to fire, and cut down the images of their gods, obliterating their name from that site. Wow, that's what the blessed among us are supposed to do. Perhaps there was a time when that seemed noble and righteous, to cleanse the land of that which you blindly believe was not holy, to establish a safe space to worship the one eternal God. But in 2022, it is embarrassingly arrogant at best, toxic colonialism at worst, and really not a great look to have a biblical endorsement of what anti-Zionists basically accuse the modern state of Israel of doing every day. But Riyah isn't done with us yet. Oh, no. We have not yet talked about slavery. Riyah instructs us that we are only allowed to purchase and keep a slave for 6 years. Upon the 7th year, we must offer them their freedom. But first, we have to present the slave with a choice. If they really, really want to remain a slave longer, which I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to do that? We can mark them as our slave for perpetuity by piercing their ear with an awl. However, if they still choose their freedom, we must comply. But again, we can't be jerks about it. remembering that we were once slaves in Egypt and that really sucked. So we have to let them go graciously with a flock and some basic tools so that they can get started on their own, because that's what a person of blessing would do. We, all humans, not just us in our community, we seem to have a collective societal agreement just to chalk any record of slavery up to history and not confront it, especially if you aren't the descendant of the slave. I mean, we do love to talk about the Exodus story in which we were the slaves freed from bondage, but until I read Riyah, not one rabbi or teacher of mine ever broached the subject of Jewish slave owners. Of course, we can write all of this off as ancient and outdated and excuse it within its context. But it is our sacred text, our word of God, our laws, our choice to be blessed by following them or cursed by not. And looking around this room, I'm willing to bet no one here owns a slave, let alone has set one free, or has burned down another religion's place of worship, or has brought the blood of the first of your flock as an offering to this altar behind me. Nor would any of us want to. Probably very few, if any of us, even keep kosher. And honestly, do any of us even really want to do that? So, are we all here choosing to be cursed? I don't know if it's that simple as a blessing or a curse. Just as in between black and white there are so many shades of gray, perhaps in between the choice of blessing and curse presented to the Jewish people at the border of the Promised Land, there are so many shades of evolution. And while the words of the Torah haven't changed, what we do with them has grown and developed and broadened and evolved. Laws are important. We need them to give us structure and guidance and to keep our basest instincts toward chaos, greed, and cruelty at bay. But no document of law and guidance is so beautiful, so wise, and so sacrosanct that it can or should remain literal and set in stone. Our words, our stories, even our laws have to evolve with time, by the very nature of time. The Torah means something different to us today than it did to our biblical ancestors who may have received these laws of Riyah on the shores of Jordan. We've evolved a lot since then, so in order for us to continue to learn from it and find comfort in its teachings, it has to be allowed to evolve with us and be viewed and commented on from somewhere in between this messy wilderness between blessing and curse. Kind of reminds me a bit of our U.S. Constitution, something that is also very wise and very old, and despite how much I love to sing along to Hamilton and Schoolhouse Rock, it has to be acknowledged contains portions that are not evolving quickly enough to reflect the reality in which I and my children and our friends now live. Baseball loves to wallow in superstition about curses, and yet our Cleveland Guardians were able to, better late than never, evolve away from a traditional name, an originalist text, if you will, that was causing a century of pain. Not everyone agreed with that decision. But now that we've adapted to this new form of observation and praise, it's pretty clear that nothing fundamental about our system of baseball belief has changed. The spirit of the team and the fans' connection to them remains intact. We just looked at something that was sullying our relationship with our baseball tradition, addressed it, and evolved it to suit who we are at this time. And the great thing about this Guardians team, in addition to their new name, is how they know that just like there are likely more choices in life between the blessing and the curse, there is more to baseball than the extremes of the home run and the strikeout. And I'm really sorry, Rabbi Josh, but unlike those unpleasant, obnoxious New York Yankees, the Guardians know it doesn't have to be big swings at all or nothing every time you step up to the plate. In between the homer and the strikeout, there are so many opportunities for little bloopers and bunts and legging out a single. That is how you put together a game. So in 2022, we look at the Torah for all its big swings and outdated misses, and we find what we are able to run with to put together a game that we can be proud of. We evolve until we can figure out what it makes sense for us to choose to be as Jews, somewhere in between blessed and cursed. Or else, honey, we are all going to miss the boat. Thank you.
Wow, Margie, thank you so much. Powerful, beautiful words of Torah. We are so grateful. I would make some baseball jokes, but I'm a Phillies fan, and so I don't have much to say. We take this moment in our service to think of those who are in need of healing. If you are here tonight and you are thinking of someone in need of healing, whatever that healing might look like, physical, spiritual, I invite you to share the names of someone you're thinking of either out loud or hold them in your heart as I look towards you. Tonight, our community is thinking of Dan Allen, Ro Allen, Claire Mengel Allender, Kristen Barnes, Maddie Bookatz, Rosalind Brooker, Ellen Brooks, Joe Callahan, Amy Cohen, Linda Craig, Josh Danielpour, Rabbi Jim Agolf, Linda Felder, George Fendel, Eric Fisher, Nina Fisher, Mary Freeman, Kara Greenwald, David Goldfein, Rafi Hami, Stephen Heller, Lev Heschel ben Batami Yaakov, Robert Jackson, Rebecca Jacobson, Monica Jones, Ethan Kadish, Linda Kahn, Sheldon Kafen, Patricia Kipstol, Ivan Kramer, Marla Lakin, Malka Butt Rivka, Charlie Lewis, Suzanne Loria, Dennis Malkin, Margaret Marshall, Jennifer Russell McGee, Scott Miller, Barbara Misney, Mia Newman, our Rabbi Robert A. Nosenchuk, Carol Plank, Paula Platt, Jewel Price, Gail Ray, Bernice Reif, Cooper Sol Roberts, Joseph Rocchio, Frank Rubin, Gordon Safran, David Schlein, Stephen Schlein, Bob Schwartz, Sharon Schwartz, Greg Selker, Mona Sankfor, Stephen Shackno, Dr. James Silverblatt, Pat Singer, Linda Snyderman, Estelle Slutsky, Esther Badhana, Alexia Stern, Michaela Stern, Liviana Briezolzer, Harold Tickton, Daryl Tyndall, Brenda Tinker, Misha Zetlin, Marilyn Violas, Angel Whistner, Terry Williams, Richard Wilson, Ilsabil Wolf, Eliza Bat Yitzchak Chaim HaKohen Vazelda Jenny, Kayla Bat Pesach Vamiriam, Mordechai Ben Henya, Sarah Esther Bat Abraham Vasara. Our prayer for healing is on page 253 in the middle, and I invite you to join with us as we sing the Mishaberach for healing. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. In this moment, we also take this time to recognize the wonderful milestones that folks are celebrating today. We have milestone birthdays for Alan Kopit and Susie Kopit. Are you here? Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Happy birthday. And we also are saying a big mazel tov to Beatrice and Larry Axelrod, celebrating 69 years together. Mazel tov. I have to ask, I ask this every time, what's your secret? 2 words. Yes, dear. Very nice. I'm always taking notes. Mazel tov to all of you. May you be surrounded by strength and good health and joy and happiness, and above all, so much love. Please join with me as we give a rousing shechachianu to everybody celebrating a milestone. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shechachianu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. We continue with the Aleinu prayer on page 282. I invite you to please rise. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. You may be seated. Continue on page 293 towards the bottom. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Tonight, our Fairmount Temple community marks the recent passing of Judith Giller Linewall and Esther Rubin. We commemorate the Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning of Michael McGarity, Estelle Finnick, Rabbi Frederick A. Eisenberg, Abraham Arthur Moss, Rita Heller, Betty Pensner, Mark Kester, Stanley Wernick. If you are remembering a loved one tonight for Kaddish, in a moment I'm going to invite you to stand, but I'm going to share the names of those who we are commemorating the yard sites of tonight. Tonight we are thinking of Rabbi Michaelis Machol, Oscar Edelman, Alvin Adler, Louis Aronoff, Iva Bendersky, Sam Berger, Saul Bergman, Estelle S. Black, Lillian Brockman, Betty G. Berger, Myron A. Cohen, Peter M. Diamond, Edward S. Eckstein, Isaac Feigenbaum, Myron A. Feinberg, Rosa Zucker-Fischel, Fanny Freeman, Sylvia Bernhardt Gelb, John S. Goldheimer, Clara E. Goodman, Bernie Gordon, Carol Kahn Grabowski, Rezi Greenbaum, Judah L. Halley, Fred Helden, Freda A. Jappe, Henrietta Joseph, Gary Kabat, Isidore Kasten, Dr. Lawrence A. Cater, Rosalind L. Cates, Sunny Kest, Albert Klausner, Ray Crone Kovar, Tilly B. Krause, Sophie Lederer, Ruth Levine, Rita Livingston, Mary Liffman, Charlene H. Lorber, Dr. Mortimer Lubert, Catherine Mayers, Rose B. Miller, Saul M. Milstein, Lily S. Mollo, Ted Moses, Carrie Newman, Annie Noble, David Perlick, Harry Pivowar, Fred Polster, Margie Polster, Jerome I. Polster, Tilly Polster, J. H. Reese, Pauline A. Reese, Nathan Rhagar, Donald G. Reichs, Alfred J. Rice, Minnie Rubenstein, Louise Schwartz, Sylvia C. Schwartz, Evelyn Cohen Sheckett, Bessie Pauline Schifrin, Olga Theman, Lottie Tobin, Samuel Eugene Mans, Rose Wertheimer, and Sophie M. Zavelson. If it is your custom, if you are remembering a loved one tonight, I invite you to please rise if you are able so that we may recognize you. And if it is your custom, I invite you to rise as we recite the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chidutei ve'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari ve'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'alam Ulalmei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal Shmei Dekudesha Brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all humanity, to which we say, Amen. You may be seated. A few announcements as we conclude our service. Thank you to all of you who are here tonight for sharing the service with me. This is my first time leading all by myself, and I'm so grateful to Margie Zatelli for your words of Torah. It was really powerful to hear what you had to say and what you had to teach us. Hopefully this is the first of many opportunities. Thank you to our administrative staff and to Dr. David Gooding for your beautiful accompaniment tonight, as always. Machzor pickup, we have new high holiday prayer books. If you have not received one yet, every family that's a member family receives one as part of being a member of Fairmount Temple, and you can get it as you are leaving. Barbara Smith is going to be outside at a table, and you can pick them up. Additional sets of prayer books are available through purchase through Fairmount Temple. Tomorrow morning at 9:15 is our Torah study. If you really enjoyed learning from Margie today, you can continue studying Parshat Re'eh tomorrow morning at 9:15. If you'd like the Zoom link, please email Stacy Cohen, scohen@fairmounttemple.org. If you know of any kids 0 to 5 years old, please invite them tomorrow. We're having our splashy Simchat Shabbat at the Darcy Altar Playground. We have many families that have signed up, and hopefully we will welcome as many as we can. It's going to be a wonderful program for families with young kids. Join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Darcy Altar Playground. And let's see. Please, this is an announcement from our caring community, write postcards at Temple during the High Holy Days. We are going to have tables set up to write postcards on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur. If you are planning to attend worship services in person, please stop by and write some cards. And one more announcement. The Reformed Jewish Movement is conducting a campaign to protect, expand, and strengthen democracy by encouraging underrepresented voters to vote in the 2022 elections. In your programs, you should have information on how to participate in all of those events. Okay, I think I got everything. We're going to continue with our Motzi and Kiddush. Please join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And after services, I'm going to take the challah out at our oneg table. Thank you, Barbara Smith, for helping us out, as always, with that. And enjoy some of our delicious oneg with the challah. And we conclude our service with the singing of Oseh Shalom. Please join with me. Everybody knows this song. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Shabbat shalom.